youth. Time now is 14 minutes past 8.
Once upon a time, in an enchanted kingdom, there was a beautiful princess with skin as white as snow and hair as black as night.
Blah, blah, blah. Her hair is not black, it's raven, and she's 18 years old, and her skin has never seen the sun, so of course it's good.
This spring...
is Mirror Mirror is the film we're looking at. The first of a couple of films with Lena Lamont joining us on the phone line today. Morning, Lena.
Good morning, Wammo.
Mirror Mirror, as the voice is.
Yeah. It's, well, as you can tell, obviously, it's a retelling of the Snow White story. It's actually the first of 2 Snow Whites that are due to come out here any time now. The second...
Because that needs retelling, right?
Right, because, I mean, we're not really that clear on the story, eh?
No.
So, although, if I'm honest with you, I did get a bit confused. And she went out... In this particular film, she goes out in a gold cloak at one stage, and I'm sitting there thinking, isn't it meant to be red? And then I realised, no, that's Red Riding Hood. And then I was a bit like, so is this the one with the dwarfs? Or, you know,
is it the one with the dwarfs?
Yeah, this one is the one with the dwarfs. It is the one with the dwarfs,
right.
So, but you're right, yes, a retelling of Snow White. I mean, obviously, as we know, there are only so many stories in the world, so clearly now they're going through all of the fairy tales.
She kisses the prince? Or the frog?
See, there's no frog in this. And I don't remember if there's... No, this is not the princess and the frog.
Okay.
And this is the other tricky thing about this film, which is actually a perfectly reasonable retelling of the Snow White tale, but because they try to get a little bit modern, a little bit cool, and a little bit shifty with it, so they do muck a few things about, which is completely fine, because I am not one of these purists who says, look, if it doesn't happen exactly how it did in the book when I was 2, then, you know, this is a write-off. But because they muck about with it a little bit, you do get your myths and legends a bit confused in this film, I think.
Looking at the trailer, it looks real, like it's been done on a stage set. It almost looks like a theatrical production. Yeah,
it's I would say that's very high production values, and there's no attempt here to make it look as though it's real life. Which is nice, actually, because fairy tales are supposed to look a little bit very fanciful and very over the top and made up. And this one, absolutely right. The sets do, if anything, you're right, they look a bit theatrical, a bit stage production, a bit maybe cardboard set, but very lavish, big gold dresses and wonderful costumes. I mean, from a female perspective, the wish fulfillment here is twofold. Part of it is, oh my gosh, it looks so beautiful, could you imagine living in that? And the second is actually the prince. I'm horrified at myself to say that the prince in this is Armie Hammer, who played the Winklevoss twins in The Social Network. I can't remember. Did you see The Social Network?
Yes, yeah.
So you'll remember, of course, there were the twins in it, and it's the same head and 2 different bodies, as it turns out. I hope he got paid twice for that job, actually. But anyway, so Armie Hammer rocks up here as the prince, who Julia Roberts, the evil stepmother, thinks, oh, I quite like a bit of that. And so she's all making a play for him, but obviously he only has eyes for the rather vapid Lily Collins, who plays Snow White.
You know, I haven't seen Julia Roberts in anything for a long, long time.
Yeah.
But she's looking all right in this.
She does look all right. I read a review, actually, just the other day that said the problem here is that she looks way more gorgeous than Snow White.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're automatically suspending your disbelief is that much more difficult. But I think she's terrific in this. Like, I'm a Julia fan. She could do anything, and I enjoy her. I enjoy her attempts here at... and her successes, I should say, in my view, at being a little bit caustic and a little bit funny and a little bit clever. I do acknowledge that she gets a bit of a slamming from the side of the audience that isn't pro-Julia, but let's be honest, if you hate her, you wouldn't go see this film, would you?
True that, yeah. And who else is in it?
Nathan Lane plays her obsequious butler. Now, Nathan Lane hasn't been in anything for ages, but if you cast your mind back probably 2 decades to The Birdcage with Robin Williams, he was in that, and goodness, I'm sure he's done very much more important parts than that. He has a history of musical comedy and he is a stage performer at heart. He plays that role easily. So yeah, you've got.
Is it Ewan McGregor? It looks like Ewan McGregor's in it.
No,
not in it. No,
no, I don't want to do too much of a spoiler. There's a tiny snippet of Sean Bean.
Oh, okay.
Later on, that may be who you're thinking of. But don't spend your $16.80 to see this film just for Sean Bean. That's just a little bit of a consumer protection notice there, because he's not in it that much.
Okay, good-o. Mirror, Mirror. Moving on now to Footnote.
פרופסור סקולניק, מזל טוב.
אני רוצה להבין, התקשרתם לאבא שלי בטעות? השרה דיברה איתו וברכה אותו לפרס כשהיא חושבת שהיא מדברת איתך. לפרס אי אפשר לקחת את זה.
Subtitles are plenty in this one, Lena.
Yes, and it's in, I believe the correct term is it's in Hebrew, so that's right. We won't be able to tell from the trailer exactly which scene that was or what they were saying. I really loved Footnote, and it's an entirely different type of film to Mirror, Mirror. So suddenly we're switching to a completely different audience and people with completely different interests. The basic story is this, and it's so straightforward, and yet as you watch it, it twists and turns and it enthralls you, or certainly that's how it was for me. Footnote is a story set in Israel about a perfectly happy, well-educated, middle-class Israeli family. The father, the senior professor, has spent 30-odd years becoming an expert in a particular aspect of, how do they put it? It's not Talmudic theory. It's a very intricate area of the Jewish Torah, and he has just basically become a scholar in an area that it almost doesn't even matter that I can't even talk about what it is, because that's not what the point of it is. But the point is he's an expert.
Yeah.
And for some strange reason, his son has taken it upon himself to also develop himself as an expert in the same very, very discrete area of academia. So you've got the senior professor and the junior professor. Each of them, there's sort of this tacit rivalry between them. Obviously, both of them wants to become the authority in this particular area, but they each have very different sort of attitudes to success and winning, and how much you should be acclaimed by your peers, and whether you should be humble about it, and what constitutes being an expert and what doesn't. Now, this all sounds terribly dry. The whole point of the film is that you've basically got this father-son relationship, which is kind of on this sort of tightrope, this perilous kind of tightrope or cliff edge, because if one succeeds more than the other, it's going to impact on their relationship. But at the same time, this is each man's life's work and an intention, if you will. So I can't say too much about the actual plot, because it would give away the twist and turn that happen. But suffice it to say, I sat down to watch this, and I absolutely couldn't switch it off until I got to the end. It's so subtle. It's so kind of low key. I think stylistically, one of the wonderful things about it for me is it reminded me, and this is probably what's going to suddenly get audiences either going yay or nay, is it reminded me of Amélie to some extent. Now that was 15 odd years ago, wasn't it? It's got a lot of the same sort of visual quirks that Amélie has, the sort of footnotes written across the screen, although, of course, curiously for us, because they're in Hebrew, they're written backwards across the screen. Yeah. And lots of little, this is the reason why Professor Skolnick is the way he is, and, little backstories and that sort of thing, which I find very charming and very witty, and it keeps the pace going. I can't remember how long it is. It feels like a very short film because it's so pacey. And the dialogue is fantastic, and the acting is so realistic that you could completely, just sort of assume that you are witnessing a real family with its moral dilemmas and its trials and tribulations.
Nice one. Will it create any crossover actor or actress hits, like Amelie did?
That's a very good question, because each of the main chaps in Footnote has an extensive career in Israeli film and television.
Right.
And I couldn't see that either of them had been in any American stuff. There was none of this, or he was a bit an extra in Munich or something, playing a Mossad agent, or any of those sort of stereotypes. Yeah. So it may actually be such a foreign film. Oh, and I should mention also it was nominated for the Foreign Film Oscar this year.
Ah, there you go. That's why it's been released by Sony Pictures, no doubt.
That may well be why. Yeah. So it was one of the, what were there, like 5? No, I think there were only 5 nominees. Now, admittedly, it lost out to the Iranian film A Separation, which won at Cannes last year. So in a way, Footnote, poor thing, didn't stand a chance. But
those two film industries at war, just like the countries.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, that's
I know.
interesting.
So the Israeli film up against the Iranian film.
Yeah.
But both of them highly recommended. We'll talk about Separation in a month or so when that's out. But
excellent.
But yeah, Footnote, I just thought it was terrific. So highly recommended for anybody who doesn't mind, obviously, reading subtitles and wants to just engage a little bit on such a straightforward story that you genuinely would be thinking, oh my goodness, if this was my life and he was my dad or this was my son, what would I do? So yeah, it's terrific.
Good-o. Lena Lamont, the film reviews in the Sunday Star Times, and also lenalamont.wordpress.com. Thanks very much. We'll see you next week.
Indeed. Bye.
אני אספר לאבא שלי. אולי תרצה להגיד כמה דברים לכבוד הזכייה של אביך?